So let's go ahead and figure out, so I've spent actually quite a bit of time today thinking about, okay, how is the rest of the semester going to handle? Because this is week 10, week 11 is when I like to give the second exam. So you saw an email, and my biggest issue was I didn't see there being enough time. So first let me clear something up, because this caused a lot of confusion, as I saw from some of the feedback I got. When I held that review session over Zoom, typically I hold these review sessions in class because everybody gets the chance to be there. The only reason I didn't do that this semester was because scheduling with the high holidays made that very, very, very difficult. So I didn't see that working out. So in general, I like to hold these things in class. So your exam review, when I go over the practice exam, that will be in class. That will be next Tuesday. Okay, I've got that slotted in for next Tuesday. Okay, so that was my issue though with scheduling the exam, because I'm like, if I do it on Thursday, that's just not enough time, I feel, to get you prepared for the exam, as well as go over all the stuff you need for the final project, right? Or to start thinking about the final project, okay? So and the main reason with the issue is that we have these Tuesday labs that occur before our lecture. So there was a fairly easy solution to that, because if I started the exams on week 11 like I normally do, that meant the exams would start on November 4th. So the Tuesday lab would take their exams on November 4th, and that felt like there just wasn't enough time for that. So, easy solution. Students who have their lab 11 on November 4th, they're just not going to do their exam on lab 11. They'll do it in lab 12 on November 11th instead. So that will be pushed. So that's in the email, by the way. So the exams 2 starts November 5th and goes through November 11th. When that is depends on when your lab is, right? Okay, so whenever your lab falls in between those days, that is when you will have your exam. As with the last exam, you will have a sheet of paper front and back. There are no restrictions on it other than as long as it doesn't interfere with a fellow student, I don't really care, right? Okay. Truth of the matter is I do care about one thing, which is that if you somehow get the answers to the exam, it's probably a bad idea to actually write the answers on the exam on your sheet. That's where we get kind of into the cheating category there. Okay, so with that being said, here they will be different. They'll be different. I'm saying, like, if you somehow manage to like sneak a peek from the printers or whatnot somehow. Okay, so today. Right, so let's take a look at our schedule. Today, final project overview, okay? That's what I'm going to plan. That's the primary topic today. If I have time, I'm going to do more Monte Carlo at the end. I thought maybe I'll do Monte Carlo today, but no. With the GitHub lab, I want to make sure that people have time. I've adjusted the due date of that, by the way, okay? Then 10:30, day before Halloween, that will be Monty Hall, which will be our Monty Hall problem, and which will be Monte Carlo. Basically, we're going to be doing more Monte Carlo stuff, okay? Specifically focusing on the Monty Hall paradox. Okay, next would be 11:4. 11:4 is exam review. Okay? And I've already sent out the practice exam. It's in your email. Okay? And then finally, 11:6, proposal day. Proposal day will be held over Zoom. Okay? So 11:6, I will send out a reminder that we will be doing that over Zoom. There is a lot of reasons for that, but mainly it's because for those of you, I don't want to have to stuff you all in here and then dismiss you one at a time. It's just so much easier if you can just simply, if people just find it easier if you can just simply sit on your computer and watch cat videos or something, until it's your turn. Okay? I do try to handle it on a first come, first served basis, but I do ask that the students who are able to wait, do wait, so that the students who can be seen first, who have like a commitment afterwards can be seen first. Generally speaking, it does take me about 2 hours to go through these proposals with every student. I don't need to meet with every student. That being said, I need to meet with every group, okay? So and I just need one person to turn it in, and it's more than enough for people to link it on, just simply submit the same link to the same GitHub, okay? I only need one GitHub repo, okay? I will be going over, and my plan today is I'm going to go over, let's see. So I'm going to go over the syllabus, where I'm going to talk about the final project parts. I'm going to talk about a bit more about different resources we have for doing the final projects, if you are having trouble figuring that out. I'm going to then and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my quote-unquote own project, kind of walk you through what I would do, what I'm doing to set up my own project to show you how GitHub works and how working with it works, right? So last semester I made a video game mod for my quote final project. So I added a mod, and I'm planning on doing another mod. I'm not sure which one yet, but it's not proposal day yet, so, but I wanted to basically walk through that with you, okay? So, games are here first because the vast majority of students look at the final project and they give me a game, okay? That's fine. Games, you don't need, so for this one, you don't even have to make a unique game. You can take something like Tetris and recreate it. Or even better, take Tetris and maybe make it with pieces that have 5 or 3 or something else. Like, you can make a variation of it. Like, there's a variation of Tetris where stuff explode, bombless. There's also Tetris 2, which is its own weird thing. Dr. Mario is very Tetris adjacent, right? You can implement your own kind of game. And if you make it your own in some way, making your own assets, that's all the better. The question is, where do I get started? What do I do things? The vast majority of games, unless it's really involved, will require graphics. Now, early games, like NetHack, did have very interesting graphics. And some of the most famous games of all time have very, very, very simplified graphics. The NetHack is one of the greatest games of all time. As you can tell from its very old website, it is very, very old. Sorry, it's a very, very old kind of game. Let's see. And this is the graphics for NetHack. Right? It's ASCII, just ASCII art. And you think you can't really do too much with that. But, I mean, one of the best games of all time, Dwarf Fortress, okay? Dwarf Fortress is all ASCII art. And it is considered to be one of the most detailed and complex games of all time. It is extremely good. And its catchphrase, I guess its motto is "losing is fun." I know that sounds weird, but you got to understand that the logic of this is that Dwarf Fortress is fun. There's no way to win Dwarf Fortress, so you lose at some point. Therefore, losing is fun, because playing Dwarf Fortress is fun. You can play the original game for free, although there is a version now on Steam that has graphics, which is pretty cool. But so graphics need not be complex. Thomas Was Alone. Very originally Flash-based. The characters are all rectangles. It is not, the graphics are extremely basic. Okay? West of Loathing. Also considered to be an exceptionally good game? Look at those graphics. Stick figures. Okay? Graphics don't really matter. In fact, trying to make your stuff too realistic can backfire sometimes, right? There's this phenomena called the uncanny valley. Has anyone ever heard of this term yet? Yeah, it's a big one in art. This idea that basically that as things get more and more realistic, there's this kind of point at which we go, as things get more and more realistic, we're able to notice the things that are slightly off better, the things that are a bit unrealistic, that don't quite match up, and we find them kind of repulsive. This was extremely big for the 20. This was basically one of the best examples of this is that some people found absolutely repulsed by The Polar Express from 2024, a great movie with Tom Hanks in it, right? But let's go ahead and take a look at the graphics, shall we? I mean, okay. Videos, right? Sure. Let's see. Actually, let's go to the original theatrical trailer, right? Okay, and let's go ahead and... Oh, really? 240? That's going to make it look even better than it normally is. But a lot of the faces and the movements just seemed off to a lot of people in this movie. And it is a great example of basically things of this kind of uncanny valley. So making things cartoonish is actually, in a lot of 3D animated stuff, is a way to avoid that and make people identify with the characters a bit more. Okay? But again, you don't need good graphics to be a good game or to even have a distinctive graphics, right? This is very distinctive, even though it's very basic. Okay? Here's another fun game on Steam that gets released for free is like the 100 Cats series. Very, very simple game. Very, very easy. And all this is essentially Where's Waldo, but with cats in a very large image that you pan around and try to find them in a cityscape, right? So you just try to find where the cats are, and then you click on them. There's 100 total, hence the name 100 Cats. Great game. Okay? Okay, so how do you make these games? You generally speaking want a game engine to make the game, meaning something that does the hard work of putting pixels on the screen for you. Because trying to simply say, hey, turn these pixels this color and doing all that manually, that's a pain in the butt. You never really want to write your own game engine unless you're making a game like Noita. Okay? Noita, for instance, needed its own engine. Noita is great. It's a roguelike, but it's basically little thing is that every single pixel you see on screen is simulated. So basically the environment is very dynamic, very floatable. The spellcasting system is a lot like programming, and you die a lot. You die a lot. And a lot of times it is your fault. Because, you know, shooting that bomb, you didn't make sure that it would actually shoot far away from you, you know. So basically, again, everything moves around, everything is basically part of the environment that can be moved. So that's like one of these edge cases where you would want to make something. So now again, you can work in anything you want. If you are determined to stick with Python, which you can, then if you want to make a game or do anything graphic related, then my advice to you is to use Pygame. Okay, the hardest part about using Pygame is actually installing it. You have, for a beginner, you have to use something called pip to install it. Please reach out to me if you have trouble installing Pygame on your computer. Basically, you'll know it's working when you run idle and you type in import Pygame and it works instead of giving you an error. Yet once you've got Pygame installed, right? Pip install. So this is a command you run on the terminal, and then you can build a game. Now, generally speaking, tutorials are the best way to learn to make games. There's tons of tutorials on YouTube, right? Let's talk about, right? You could follow a tutorial like this. Breakout in Pygame, right? Something like this, right? Right, and it goes through how to make these kind of games in Pygame, right? Step by step. You'll want to make, of course, if you follow a tutorial, you need to make it your own in some way, right? Be it with power-ups or changing up the graphics. Just make it your own. And, it would be nice if you link me to the tutorial so I know what you followed. You're not going to be penalized for following a tutorial. Tutorials are some of the best ways to learn an engine. In fact, I give you tutorials on how to build something. That being said, if you are more of the type who wants to follow along with a book, Pygame book, right? Making games with Python and Pygame. This book by Al Sweigert is very good. It's got, basically, it shows a bunch of different games you can make in Pygame, like here's a memory matching game. And basically what he does is that he gives you his code, and then he walks through his code. Okay? So these are very good tutorials you can learn. But simple games like here's one on how to do Snake. Here's one on how to do Tetris. Pygame is very, very, very flexible, very powerful. You can do a lot with it. Although you don't necessarily although there's not a lot of, professionally made games in it. If you do want to make games using the tools that are actually used for industry, there's about 4, I would say, off the top of my head. 5? Yeah, I'll go over 5. So we've got Unreal, we've got Unity, we've got Godot, we've got Game Maker, and I'll go ahead and throw in some wildcards here with Pico 8. Pico 8 I actually highly recommend to a lot of you. Would be great. And then let's do one more. Game Boy Maker. Okay. GB Studio. That's it. Okay. So let's go ahead and start. Unreal Engine is, I believe that is, what is that? That's Fortnite, right? Yeah. It's Fortnite. It's basically the creators of Fortnite. It's Unreal Engine. Epic Games, if you've heard that name, this is Unreal Engine. This is their engine for making games. A lot of these provide extremely powerful assets, do a lot for you. They don't necessarily require coding to get started, and they have their own languages underneath them, but it is extremely powerful. And you can make a lot of games on there, and there's massive numbers of tutorial for this. And these companies want you to use their engine. They're going to be completely free for you unless you just somehow make a lot of money using these games, writing a game. And I wouldn't expect you to do for your first game. Sorry, it's just still recovering from being sick. Okay, so over here, learn about licensing. It's free. Royalties apply after $1 million of gross product revenue, right? Free for educators and schools. So, and then let's see. Yeah, so you can build a lot of stuff with Unreal Engine. It's really cool. It's fantastic. And there's lots of tutorials on how to build the kind of game you want in Unreal. Same with Unity. Unity is basically the other big competitor for creating games for creating games with a big engine. This is the other big corporate engine that is used to make games. Godot, on the flip side, is free and open source, meaning that there is no profit-oriented company behind it. Free in this case, by free and open source, they mean free as in both gratis and libre. meaning it is both free as in beer and free as in free speech. You get to modify it however you want. You can use it for whatever you want. It's a very powerful engine. You can make lots of games with it. You can build it in GD script or C# or C++, right? You can release to everything. It's very powerful, very good, very cool way to look at making stuff. I've seen some games in Godot as well. These are all different tools you can use for the job. All of them have tutorials you can follow on how to make a game if you want to make a game. Game Maker. Another one. If you're playing Deltarune, that's made in Game Maker. There's a lot you can do with Game Maker. It's fantastic. Oh, I've seen that one. That one's fun. There's a lot of different games. Game Maker has a lot of different... Game Maker is yet another kind of, popular engine for making games. All of these are really cool tools, okay? The only reason I was able to speak a bit more about Unreal is that they've got like an entire complex behind them. Pico 8 is a bit off the beaten path. The idea here is that there are, old consoles you could still technically compile games for, like Nintendo and the like. Well, what if we made up our own console to decide to make stuff? So the Pico 8 is a fantasy console. It has never actually physically existed, but it has these ideas here. And basically you're able to do everything in here, from making the sprites, to making the levels, to doing the actual code. And the idea here is limitations breed creativity. The game, these are games. Like these pictures themselves are games. So let's just click on God Hand is Real, booting the cartridge. That's what that is. And continue. Go ahead. Let's see, do I have what are my controls here? Because I'd actually have this button usually. Player 1, ZXV. Okay. And pause menu is enter. Okay. Let's go ahead and see. Let's go to this one. Playing Beam. There we go. I can control this character, move over to here. Hold to start. Okay. I bet you there's probably some music that's just not playing here. So, anyway. So, what do I mean by limitations breed creativity? You're limited in the number of colors you can use, and you're limited in how big your program can be. There's specifically, you're allowed I think, 8,000 or so tokens, which are essentially words, like for, or a variable name of like. But you can do everything in there. The programming language is, here's a cheat sheet for the entire programming language, right? Here's how you do a for loop. For I is equal to 0. 10, do, count up, print I, right? 10 to negative 200, count down. For S in all ships, right? So it's not too different. You can read these, even though you've never seen the language before. That's a big point of this entire thing here. A lot of these ideas here, these for loops, right, are suddenly a lot less intimidating now that you've been learning, all right? If functions, here's how you do a function, and it's an example of how you do a add function, right? Your operators, you understand basically what all those are. So, and then finally, if you want to make something for a real console, there is GB Studio. You could make an actual Game Boy ROM for the original Game Boy, and I could boot it up on a Game Boy emulator and play it. It's pretty cool, right? You could totally make it for another console. Now, I would be remiss in also mentioning, well, what if you have a game you really, really, really like, okay, and you want to add on to that game? So, for instance, my wife is a huge fan of Stardew Valley, okay? It's a great game. I think a lot of you have played it, okay? Stardew Valley is one of those games that benefits from a vibrant modding community. There are some games, like this one, are deliberately designed by the developer to allow other people to come in and modify the game however you want. And this requires some amount of actual courage because, honestly, some people are terrible human beings and will do terrible things to your game. But the idea here is that there's a huge number of mods you can make. Big one, Stardew Valley Expanded was a big one, and it adds just so much content, right, is the idea. Right, it adds like a new starting farm, it adds new characters, it's utterly huge. But I had one student who made a Stardew Valley mod as their project, and all they did was add new animals to it, right? So it can be very focused on it. As I'll explain for my project, I love the video game RimWorld, and I've made a mod for that game. So if you like I've had one student last semester who did a mod for Minecraft. So if you enjoy making a game a lot and thought, I've always wanted to get into the modding scene, this is your excuse to do so, right? And the benefit is that the game already exists, so your mod's already going to look pretty impressive because it's part of the game, right? You know, you can leverage the fact that the game already exists to make yourself look good. A lot of games have mods. Some companies like Nintendo, they do not like mods on their games, but honestly, if you wanted to make like a Mario Odyssey mod or something like that, yeah, totally cool for this class. Like if you want to make your own custom Mario Odyssey levels and stuff like that, that's fine, right? There's tons of stuff. Modding is a great idea for a final project, okay? Also, your games don't need to really be advanced. Let's talk about WarioWare for a second. WarioWare I mentioned last time, but I didn't actually explain what it is. It is a series of games that are what are called microgames. And any microgame effectively is effectively a game you can make. Okay? The microgames are just a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and see if I can't. So let's WarioWare. I don't need a full walkthrough. Short trailer. Or maybe WarioWare. Yeah, why not? We'll go ahead with this.
It is me,
Wario. So the idea here between microgames is that they are very limited in content. Here you're just hitting the door. Here you're unplugging the drain. Right? And the theme
Check
from
it out.
the reason that
same
Nintendo will charge
microgame
$60 is that it's not just one game. We're making like
Speaking of
160
microgames, there are over
that you play
200
rapid
of
fire,
them.
back
And
to
get
back
this,
to back.
2 people can play at the same
and then you
time.
can do them with different characters and stuff like
You
that.
can team
but
up.
like just simply making a game that is very
Speaking
simple.
of microgames, there are over 200 of them.
Is in itself
And
a
get
good
this,
achievement
2
because
people
as
can
long
play
as
at the same
you
time.
play, it's good.
You can team
Right?
up or make someone
If
else
it's
do all the
something you
work.
have been- you
Wario
enjoy playing,
style.
even if it's only just small
Either
thing,
way, you better
right?
play nice. Oh,
That's
poor
pretty
baby.
fun.
Oh, you cannot
Right?
use my
And
entire
a lot of the
crew from this top.
WarioWare games are just plain silly. Okay? So don't be afraid to be silly yourself. Okay? Finally, and we'll actually look at some examples here. Okay. I don't want this to be muted. Okay, and we're going to take some time to be here is RenP. RenP is fantastic. If you come to me and you say you have no idea what you're going to do for a final project, if you come next Thursday and tell me, I'm just going to tell you, make a visual novel in RenP. What's a visual novel? A visual novel is essentially a choose-your-own-adventure book, but on a computer. So this one was a fun one over here. The Bad End Theater, that was it. Bad End Theater. That was a fun one. That was done in RenP. Where basically you try to find a good ending for all these characters. I've talked about how about Doki Doki Literature Club, which looks like it's one of those romance games, but instead is actually not that. Really, that's all the spoiler you can get with that. Another one is, but basically the reason this is called RenP is because its backend is Python. It runs on Python. Now you don't actually have to know any Python programming to do it, but you do know Python programming, which means you can do quite a bit with it if you set your time assigned to it. So let's go ahead and open up a game and take a look at what I think is one of the best games that they've made with RenP, that has been made with RenP. Come on, Steam, don't be shy. You've never been shy before. Okay, why are you just not showing? Close window. Okay, Steam, are you drunk? It might be drunk. Sometimes apps, when you're switching screens, they get like off the screen, and it can be very difficult. Okay. So let's go to our library. Let's go and boot up, not Doki Doki Literature Club, but Slay the Princess, which is one of my personal favorites. It was done in RenP. Okay. Now, do I have volume? Because we do want volume for this. Volume mixer, output device, Extron. So, there we go. We do have volume here. Okay, you can, I'm sure you can do it. Come on. I'll give it a second. So, games in RenP are just simply, are these beautiful, can be very beautiful, they can be very crude, they can run the gamut, just like any kind of written work can. Okay? They have their guide on how to build it, and it allows you to focus on doing something you won't normally get the chance to do in a class like this, which is be creative. Right? So let's go ahead and see this. So this is done in RenP, right? Horror, not intended for all audiences, right? So let's go with new game. And this is a very good game. And this is all done in RenP. These backgrounds are hand-drawn. And it's fantastic. And it's got voice acting.
You're on a path in the woods. And at the end of that path is a cabin. And in the basement of that cabin is a princess. You're here to slay her. If you don't, it will be the end of the world.
And this is the way that visual novels typically work, which is that they present a story, not usually necessarily narrated, but then you have a choice. This one's a unique one in that it provides a lot of choices.
I'm talking about the end of everything as we know it. No more birds, no more trees, and perhaps most problematically of all, no more people.
And so let's go, and so.
That's the spirit. You make your way up the short path to the cabin. You'll find the princess within. A warning before you go any further. She will lie, she will cheat, and she will do everything in her power to stop you from slaying her. But don't believe a word she says. We're not going to go through with this, right? She's a princess. We're supposed
It's got this nice parallax effect, by the way, if I move my mouse, which I really like.
Ignore him. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
But and just because it's a game that you're doing a lot of reading doesn't make it any less of a game, right?
The interior of the cabin is
So I don't want to spend the entire class doing this. This is obviously, it's a great game, and I've spent hours on it. It's fantastic. But it gets very,
Oh, are you now? Why don't you come down and let me take a look at you?
Great job. You gave away the element of surprise. Good luck, hero.
and so the entire game is just this wonderful kind of subversion of expectations. It's a lot of horror in there, and it's very good. And the music does a lot of work here as well. So yes, I'm sure I want to quit because this is not because this class is not a Let's Play, unfortunately. But that was done with this, okay? And yeah, Of course your first result's not going to look as polished as that. That's fine. That's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is for you to learn, to have fun, to get engaged and do something you're excited about. That's what I care about the most, doing something you're excited about, okay? I love games. Games are great. They're little kind of these worlds that we create of abstract rules that have their own internal logic, right? They're wonderful, okay? Now, what about, though, if you're not into games, okay? That's fine. I mean, I have my opinions about that, but I totally get it. So I also have some other defaults ready for you, including other default games. If the one last engine I want to talk about is if you've played the card game Balatro that came out, then that was done with Lua. That was done with Lua, or with Love in Lua, I should say. That was the engine it was dealt with, that we used. Now, if you need some more directed, like, okay, it's on canvas, it's there, I can follow along kind of ideas, scroll down to Module 10, Reader Edition. Module 11. Module 11 has a list of all these different things for the projects. Okay, different track, and these were copied from the Harvard CS50X course, which is where I got the idea for this final project for. And it has 3 tracks that they present and they have videos for, which is the games track, the mobile app track, which the videos are a bit, I think, outdated at this point because mobile, unfortunately, it does evolve very quickly in terms of stuff, and then web track. So making a mobile app, there's a lot of resources there just in the same way there are for games. That being said, if you want to make an app for an iPhone, okay, this is a kicker. If you want to make an app for an iPhone, you need access to a Mac. There's just no getting around it, okay? Legally, that's the way it works for Apple. You have to have a Mac in order to make for iPhone. And then Android, though, you can learn Java, and that is the next class's programming language, so you can kind of get a leg up there if you decided to go and learn Java. But there's different ideas here. For instance, for making games, I'll open up games and then I'll open up web. Okay, for games, right? It teaches you how to make Pong from beginning to end, and it's got all these videos, or at least I hope it still has all these videos. Come on. What happened here? Do we have view page source? Do we have these videos still? YouTube. Yeah, let's click on it and see. Open link in new tab. Okay. No, I don't want to view the source of a YouTube of this embedding. I want just that video. Yeah, okay. These are just there. My web browser is just being silly.
All right, so in Pong Zero,
So these are videos that will show you how to make games, this game from scratch, following these videos. And you can follow these videos to make them literally from scratch. I've done so myself. I've literally followed these videos to make this game. I do try to make sure that the resources I give you are things you can use. And then it goes from making a very basic game like Pong, which you can, I've done my own fun version of that, where the computer cheats after you start beating it. And then it also teaches you how to do like stuff like make a 2D platformer. So if you want to follow these tutorials on how to make a 2D platformer, it's all there for you. Pretty much all the code is there for you. You just have to follow along, okay? And that works in the Lua programming language. If, on the other hand, you want to do something more along the lines of making a web page, right? There's 2 different kind of web pages that they go over, and the splitting point is here on homepage, which they go over, okay, this is how you make a web page, right? You start with HTTP, they explain what that is, how HTML works, how CSS works, so making web pages from scratch, from nothing, using JavaScript, and then going over how to use Flask, which is actually something that I believe uses Python to do. So on the back end, and basically making a dynamic web page that log in. The tutorial they give is what I call stonks, right? Which is that they will show you videos on how to. Right, it used to be that basically I had students choose one of these, stonks, right? But this basically is a fake a fake stock trading website. Basically, it taps into real financial data, so you can pretend that you're losing money in the stock market, right? Because just as an aside, in case you don't understand how trading on the stock market works, generally speaking, you're not as smart, and I'm not as smart as basically the people who have been doing this for a while and have insider knowledge, but pretend not to have insider knowledge making trades. It's very hard to quote unquote beat the market. So don't go along with the market. It's the guaranteed way to make money in the stock market is buying an index fund, which simply says, hey, as the entire stock market does well, so does my money. And that will grow over time and actually make some pretty darn good returns. That's how you make money in the stock market. The other thing, so that is strategy number one for buying stocks. The other one is I buy Nintendo stock because I like Nintendo. Not because I believe in any financial futures, but because I like Nintendo. That's really what it comes down to, right? So, don't try to have a strategy. The stock market goes up, your prices go up. Things go badly in the stock market, well, it's going badly for everybody, and your losses are distributed, and they will recover. Okay, at least that's the way it works. Otherwise, just simply doing all that other stuff like options, that's just gambling for people with way too much money. Okay, or that's just gambling for people who don't want to admit it. Okay. So, but regardless, you can learn how to make this fake kind of database for doing it. I've again seen people make. One of my favorite web pages was like a web page for like a fake game, and it was like a kind of story. It's like they made their own kind of visual novel with HTML, where basically it was a link to a fake Reddit page that led you to a link to another fake page and stuff like that. It was just like all these embedded pages. It was a lot of fun. Okay, just simply going through it, and the student really liked it, and it was very well done. Some students make portfolios, and when you make portfolios, I generally take into consideration how professional it looks, how good it looks. Or if you're not making it professional, then how stylized it looks. Okay. Another one I've seen another student make was he made a Dungeons and Dragons point buy calculator on a web page. So, something for a game. Speaking of other kind of calculators and stuff, one thing I didn't put on there that I should, right? Discord bot. Okay. Discord bot, making a bot that can run on Discord, right? That you can have make a command and something. Before Kanye went on went really off the deep end, one group of students made a Kanye bot where they basically took a bunch of his quotes and put it into an LLM of sorts to basically create basically make new Kanye quotes. It was pretty good. It was just a Discord bot. Doing some kind of bot like that, like some kind of chat bot like that would be perfectly fun. Hardware-based projects. Okay, so there are devices called Raspberry Pis and Arduinos, microcomputers. Raspberry Pi, I've shown you something similar, but I'm pretty sure they got the idea from this. A Raspberry Pi is this like $35 computer. It's about the size of a credit card. You can do all sorts of things with it. It's just this little thing. And this is one of those kind of ideas of like what you could do with it. Laser tripwire. Okay. Right, and there's a ton of projects that are on the Raspberry Pi webpage that you can look at. This one is one of my a good one.
I've got my Raspberry Pi sitting in this box with the straw sticking out there and the laser pointer shining into that. You want to make sure that the laser's there. What we can do is we can turn the lights off, and then we can load a little bit of flour. We can just connect to the laser. There we go. We can turn the lights back on there. And then we can get some unsuspecting person to walk through the laser and set it off.
That's it. Then, so it says, here's all the things you need for this. And it goes into, here's how you detect a broken beam. And it goes through all of these kind of things on how to connect it to your thing. And, oh, what, wait, is this Python? Yes, it is Python. It's Python. Just to talk to these pieces of hardware. You know, it's almost as though I'm trying to give you the best resources possible here. There's tons. So building a gadget of some kind. Back when Among Us kind of was really popular and just coming out, one of the things that one of our students did, very basic program, 20 lines of code maybe, okay? But it was a hardware device. They pushed it, and it did a emergency meet. It was a real-life emergency meeting button. They push it. It sends a Discord broadcast to everybody. It was very, so it was. That's all it was. So it was a combination of doing some hardware plus a Discord bot. It required very little code, but it was a lot of fun. Yes.
So, like, if I want to do a video game, and do I have to, like, if I were to use Idle or VS Code or something?
No, I don't care what you use.
I know, like, would I have to, would the video game run only using Idle, or it would have to open Python?
Pygame is just simply the library you would use. It's just a library you would use. You'd run it with Idle or VS Code or whatever you wrote it in. It doesn't matter.
I have to use Pygame as a library.
If it's what I recommend if you're going to be working in Python. Okay. Before I start losing too much more time, because I've just checked the time. Wow. Okay. So part of the reason we have this entire thing of proposal day is that I need to nix bad ideas in the bud. Bad ideas being ones that are too easy. Students coming to me and saying, I want to do something like tic-tac-toe or hangman. I'm gonna glare at you if you come with me at those ideas now. Because tic-tac-toe is essentially an assignment that I would have given maybe week 7 or so. As opposed to Hurricane Tracker, it's a normal assignment. That being said, it's well understood. It's not particularly interesting. That being said, if you want to do something like tic-tac-toe and Pygame, there is a game that's a lot better. And it's called Goblet Gobblers. Goblet Gobblers. Made for kids, except, or more importantly, for parents who've had enough of playing tic-tac-toe with their kids and want something with a bit more strategic depth. This one is very simple. It's the same rules as tic-tac-toe, except you have 3 big pieces, 3 small pieces, and 3 medium pieces. And bigger pieces can cover up smaller pieces. That's it. You've got the ability to cover up other people's pieces with your pieces and then move your pieces on the board instead. Adds a lot of strategic depth. It's great. Suddenly I'm not actually beating my kid every single time because it's a new game and you make mistakes with new games. It's great. Okay? Similarly with Hangman, that one leaves a particularly sour taste in my mouth because I had one of those students where they begged to please turn it in late. And I'm like, fine, I accede. And then he turned in not only a copy of Hangman, which is too simple, it was a plagiarized copy of Hangman. So that went very poorly for that student. Simply put, Hangman is, if you want to do something off of Hangman, I recommend doing something like Wordle or something like that, or a version of Hangman that cheats all the time so that the user can't win. If you're interested in that, come and speak to me. I don't want to spend too much more time on that. But that's an assignment I give in 2168. It's one of my favorites, and why not let you do it early? Okay? So, as I mentioned, you can also do you could totally do art and music stuff for this. Now, let's assume that let's go ahead and assume I'm a student for a second, and I'm going to run through the steps of what I would need to do to set up my project. There's 4 steps for for this, right? We've got proposal, which is due this weekend. I've adjusted the due date so it's due this weekend. Then we've got proposal, which is due November 6th. Then we've got progress report, which is not really a big thing to worry about. That's just simply saying, hey, you remember you had this final project to work on, right? And then you've got the final due date. The project is due the last day of classes. The last day of classes is December 8th. The entire point of this timeline is that so that proposal day is November 6th. That's when you're going to basically say, this is what I want to work on. That way you have basically a month to work on this project. December 8th is the due date for it. Okay? The late penalty for a final project is that it is a tenth of a point off per minute late. I don't do late penalties for it. If you are not finished, just submit what you have. Okay? Seriously. I'll go more into detail about what this mission looks like for that, but for pretty much everything, it's uploading a link to your GitHub account. You'll be doing this all in GitHub because you are now programmers. The excuse, my dog ate my homework, or the virtual dog ate my homework, doesn't exist anymore for you. There is no, I lost all my work at the last minute because I forgot to back it up. That doesn't exist anymore. GitHub exists. You don't have that excuse. I'm going to go over what GitHub is, but basically we are going to simply use basically use one of the most powerful backup tools on the planet that's available for free. Microsoft acquired GitHub quite a number of years ago, and it's a magnificent resource. Okay, so what do I want to do for my final project? Last semester, I did this. Like I said, I love the video game RimWorld, which I've had people describe as it's The Sims, but with war crimes. It's a great video game. It's a colony simulator. Basically, you manage a bunch of dysfunctional pawns, as they're called, as they try to do their best after surviving after crash landing on a planet. And you fight various enemies, various tech levels. So I created this mod, which was a very simple mod, not very involved at all. It's called Rosen Backstories, which simply adds additional backstories based off of different references to different media on the in there. So, and really all this was a bunch of XML. That's all it was. Very, 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 very basic stuff. I created this as a picture for it, and that's it. Okay, but this is what I would be turning in for me. A README about what it is. The README contains, hey, here's my picture, and my read up of this and what it does, and then here's my actual code for it. And I would turn in also a video going over like what this actually does, because I'm not too familiar with if you're not too familiar with the game. But this is essentially all the code is, right? And I just worked on creating 44 new backstories over the next couple months. And when I first started, it was only like 20, so it's expanded in scope. And so the idea here is that I wanted to make this, but obviously that doesn't really do much for you. I want to start one from scratch, so I'm thinking this semester. So this is proposal. So I've had two ideas that have been kicking around in my head. First is basically that we can is that RimWorld has the abilities of these in an expansion called ideology that allows you to basically theme your colony based off of like an ideology or off of or a religion. Christianity and Islam, being huge religions, are baked into the game. I believe Hinduism is also baked into the game because, again, such huge religions. Judaism, though, not so much. So, and then some mods expand that content as well and add Judaism as kind of a background for the game. And so I really like the idea of adding Jewish-powered armor into the game, like Jewish, and all that would be is just simply a graphical mod. There's one, it exists for Christian kind of themes and Hindu themes. So I just was like, what would that look like? And I'm thinking like it would look kind of golemish shaped, living stone kind of thing. So I don't know, that's an idea there. The other was adding in more rituals to the game. Maybe fasting is an important part of a lot of religions, so maybe adding in a ritual that colonists can do for fasting. Or maybe or the newest expansion adds kind of these spaceship-like thingies, or making something along the lines of that. So let's go ahead and fill out the proposal for what we're going to do is make a repository and fill this out. So first thing you want to do is create an account on GitHub. There now, GitHub, right, there's a lot of kind of technical things I used to go over, but honestly, you can download Git as a command line tool and use it, but honestly, this about sums it up. Git xkcd. Okay, this is Git. It tracks collaborative work on projects through a beautiful distributed graph theory model. Cool, how do we use it? No idea, just memorize these shell commands and type them to sync up. If you get errors, save your work elsewhere, delete the project, and download a fresh copy. It's a very accurate statement. What GitHub is really good for is for a large team of people working on a large code base, and allows you to basically, a lot of people to work on something at once and then merge their changes together, right? Through having like a primary tree, and then you have the branches, and you can merge in branches, or in the case like small project like this, you can just work on the main branch and just update. And it has ways to automatically like configure these updates for you. Sorry, automatically resolve any conflicts that there are. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I created an account on GitHub already. Accounts are free. I'm going to go ahead and the way projects work in GitHub is that they're stored in what are called repositories, or repos for short, okay? So what we're going to need to do is create a new repository. Menu, repositories. Do I have, is there a new, right, the plus one, create new. Up here, create new. New issue, new repository. You can fork repositories as well, which means like making a copy and stuff like that. Owner, me. I mean, if you have multiple accounts or something like here I had other ones, but I'm just working as me, A.B. Rosen. Repository name. If you can't think of one, it will suggest one for you. But I'll talk about it maybe, I'm just going to work on maybe RimWorld proposal. Okay, description. Idea for initial project for fall 2025 project. All right. Configuration, choose visibility, who can see it. You'll want it to be public. This is one of the three, this is the cause of a lot of temporary zeros for the final project, right? Where this is set to private, so I'm not able to see your work, right? I want it to be public so I can. It's something you can switch later, but if I can't see your GitHub repo, I just give you a 0 as a way to notify, hey, you need to fix this. And then when you do fix it, I fix it. I fix your grade. You know, so, and README. Your life is going to be a lot easier if you tick this button. I'm not going to tick it though, because a lot of you may have forgotten to. Add a git ignore. Basically, it's saying what kind of files to ignore. I'm not going to bother with that. And a license. License, how other people can use your code. I'm just going to generally choose the MIT clause, which basically says you can do whatever you want with my code, including sell it. I don't care. Don't blame me if your computer blows up. That's basically what the MIT license says. Okay? It's like I'm not liable for you running the code. You can use it however the heck you want. Okay, create repository. So you create this repository and you end up with this. Okay? So if you end up with an initial repo like this, you might not have any files. If there's no files there, you hit this button right over here, this plus button, to create a new file like a README or something. Okay? Okay, but we had this proposal thing that we want to get from that I download, and we want to upload onto this, right? So I'll work on that in a second. Now, what you want to do to make your life a lot easier is to get the GitHub desktop app for this, okay? There's all these commands I used to be able to show about how to push and pull, and that would actually take up the entire lecture, just showing you how to do it the hard way. When in the end, the easy way is just simply go to GitHub desktop and get the app for it. And then now that we have the app, I'll be able to show you how it works, right? Okay? So download it, pretend I'm downloading it, blah, 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 blah. I downloaded it, yay, okay. So now it installs, and so now it's on my computer, as if it wasn't there all along, right? Now, being a Microsoft product, it is integrated with a lot of Microsoft stuff. It will probably come up with like something else like than this. But what you want to do is go to File and then Clone Repository. That's basic. Cloning a repository says basically I want to make a local copy of a repo that exists already on GitHub. It's much easier if you start by making the stuff on GitHub like I already did, right? So you're going to want to follow these directions for when you're coming back to this. So hit clone, and I'm going to look for what I was looking for, right? GitHub.com URL if you have the URL specifically, but it was like RimWorld something. So our RimWorld proposal. I'm going to hit that and hit clone. Okay, and then you get basically a whole lot of what looks like a lot of nothing over here, right? It gives you 3 buttons. First off, let's go ahead and see what I should expect to see on my computer, which is just one file. License file, because that's, I said to make a license. And that's the MIT license right over here, okay? Okay, if you don't have any files, it's not going to have any files. If I can make a file though. I could just simply make a Python file like right here, right? But no, not at the moment. Right, yeah, something went wrong. Oh well, I don't care. I don't need that right now. Okay, we're expecting it on my computer, and you've got 3 buttons. First is view it on GitHub, which will open the URL. You open it up on GitHub so you can see it. When you turn it in, this is what you want to send to me, right? Second, show on the middle button. Show and explore. It will, by default, it will when you clone a repository, it will be in your documents folder, in the GitHub subfolder, and then it will have a subfolder for that specific repository because you're going to probably have more than one. So this is essentially the folder that you'll be working in. Okay, and the last one is open in Visual Studio Code if you have it. I don't need it. We're not going to work in it because I don't want to imply that you have to work in it, okay? But if you want to open it up to work in VS Code, it's all there. It's all like very tightly integrated. It's really nice and clean. So what I'm going to do is I've got this over here. And the big thing is that GitHub will be tracking the changes in this folder as the changes occur. Okay? So for instance, if I create a new Python file over here, okay, I'm just going to create a new file. I'm going to call it hello.py. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and open it in Geany. Okay, and all I'm doing is writing a basic hello world program. Print hello. Now I've created this file. I go ahead and I either create it there or I do the following. I hit save as. I go to GitHub. I go to the folder and I say save as. Save this file here. Right. And if I go back over here, the GitHub app will say, hey, I detected there's a change there. Okay, what's the change? Okay, give me a second. Can I view? Zoom in. Okay. It says, hey, I detected a change. Hello.py, that's a file you added. And it's got this line. Don't worry about the line ending things. Yeah, create hello.py. So when you've made a change you're satisfied with, you can create a snapshot of the current state of that folder, of this repo, by hitting this button, the commit button. A commit is, again, this snapshot. And what's important about these snapshots is that you can revert, is that you can go through these snapshots, and if you make a complete mess of things, you can revert to these previous snapshots. It's like a super save, because you can go back to it at any point. Now, committing just simply creates that on your computer. Okay? Right, if we go and look on GitHub, there's not been any changes here. In order to make that change, right, we do what's called a push, which can be done by pushing over here or over here. And now that we've done that, if we open it up in GitHub again, we'll see that there's the license file and then the hello.py that I created just now. And if we check, it's got that text, it's got the code in it, right? Now, okay. Now, what's really cool about GitHub is that, again, if I have a friend working on this, okay, they could, I'm going to edit, you can edit some stuff directly in GitHub. if you need to make a quick and dirty edit. And so I'm going to simulate that for somebody else working on their own local copy and submitting something, right? If somebody else does something, hello, print, okay, world, right? Commit changes, right? Doesn't matter. So there, I've made the change. I can then download it, and it's like, aha, there's been a change. We push changes up to save them to GitHub, and we can pull changes to get them back. And this makes it very easy to get running on a computer, on another computer, because you just download the repo. You just clone it and download it. Now, what's great about this is that sometimes, in some cases, you might make separate changes. Like, for instance, I make a change over here. So let's go ahead and make a change. Reload. I'm going to make this hello. So I'm going to call this hello over here. Okay, on our end. I'm capitalizing the hello. See, delete this, add this. And now let's go ahead and before I change it on, and let's say I worked on this line, my friend worked on a separate line of code somewhere else, or somewhere else in the project. They capitalized the W, okay? Very basic changes over here, commit change. I'm making this very basic change to kind of show something over here. So I've made a change, he's made a change. I attempt to push my change, he's already pushed his. Unable to push because you're not working with the most recent copy that's online. So it says you've got to pull it back and you got to merge any conflicts. But it turns out that it's pretty good at figuring out how to do those conflicts, right? Namely that I had a capital, it's like, oh, you changed one line, he changed one line, they're different lines. And then, oh, it didn't auto-merge it. Boo. Basically, it's saying, okay, so here it's saying, here's your conflict, here's their how it conflicts, and you can modify it however. So I just go ahead and modify it. So this one required me to say manually what I wanted. Boo, hiss. I was hoping it would do it automatically. It does that a lot. Conflict, push. And so it gives you a way to handle these kind of, it doesn't overwrite anybody's work. It tells you, okay, how are we going to resolve these things? And if you don't like the way it's resolved, well, guess what? All those conflicts were previously saved in previous snapshots. How do you view those snapshots? This history button over here. And here's all the changes that I've made. Now, let's go ahead and do that homework. This homework, once you've got most of this homework is just getting stuff set up. Once the stuff is actually set up, it's not that hard to do. So let's go to Canvas. I'm actually already there. Let's go to the proposal, okay? And we are given a .md file. MD file is a markdown file. You can open it up in any text editor. That includes VS Code. That also includes working in, you can actually open it up in idle, right? You can also open it up in VS Code, in Notepad. MD is just short for Markdown. So I'm going to download it to my desktop for right now. And what I'm going to do is, now that it's in my desktop, I'm going to copy it, or cut it rather, and I'm going to move it over into the folder that I need, right? I'm going to just move it. You can either download it directly into the GitHub folder, but I'm just going to download it somewhere else, and then I'm going to manually go there, paste it in, and you'll notice that GitHub detects, oh, you've added a file. And now I'm going to go and fill out that file. I'm going to go ahead and open it up in here again. And a markdown file, the entire point of a markdown file is, as you'll see, is that it's very, so HTML, hypertext markup language. Markdown is a simpler version of markup, essentially. In other words, making it easy to format text. This is a header. This is a subhead. This is heading 2. Right? So what ideas do you have for a final project? Making a RimWorld mod. Jewish power armor. Or fasting ritual. If you plan on collaborating on their names are Alice Awesomeface. So I'm gonna, okay, and that's it. And do I have any questions of my own? Can I pay someone to make the art for this assignment? No. For this assignment, no. You can't. At least if all you're doing is making the power armor, right? That's what I'm doing. If my entire thing is I'm making sprites, then no, I can't pay somebody else to do it. If, on the other hand, you were like making a whole game, yes, you can purchase an asset pack if you want to, right? So when in doubt, ask the professor, right? But that's an example of this. Okay, so I've made changes to this file. I commit it. I push it. And now if we check on GitHub, my project is, let's see, it doesn't have a README. I'm going to go ahead and add that README. Just kind of understand it. Preposal. C preposal.md. That's it. So, but it's a very easy way to see, like here, that's what it looks like when you've got that heading on there. So let's take a look at the preposal. You see that, like, here's that, right? Here's that code. 1 hash mark gave me really big, 2 gave me this. Okay, it looks like it didn't render like super great, so I think I have to separate these. Oh, right, because it's Markdown. If I want to make a list, it kind of looks like this. Commit changes. Okay. Oh, I should have probably previewed it beforehand, but there we go. Cool. And that's it. All you need to do now is submit this. Specifically, what you want to submit is not like the link to this file directly, but the link to the entire repo. So this over here, preposal or main or whatever. But all I'll do is, as long as that link brings me there. So view a student for a second. View a student, go to modules. Okay. And go to preposal in GitHub Lab, start assignment. It's a URL over here, right? Submit assignment. I'm done. That was it. That's all you have to do for the preposal. Basically, it's a brainstorm session as well as an introduction on how to do GitHub, because you're basically doing the same thing but for the proposal, right? For the proposal, which is due the night of the proposal day. So in other words, it's due after you meet with me. Okay. Yep. Proposal over here. Let's see what you have to fill out for that. It's a bit more involved, but still not too much, right? This is what you'll want to fill out for the 6th. What is the title of your project, likely? And it's just a sentence or two, summarize your project. A mod for RimWorld for me, right? A mod for RimWorld, adding, and then X. Okay? In a paragraph or more, detail the project, right? So short summary, longer summary, 1060, if you're planning on doing the double dipping, if you're planning on collaborate, who are they? What is a good outcome? What is a better outcome? What is the best outcome, right? Because things will go wrong. You won't be able to get done with everything you want. If this is basically doing everything you'd want, okay? This is what you expect to be done, and you may be incorrect about that. And this is what you hope to get done, what you think you can get done, okay? And then what is the outline of your next steps, right? Keep in mind that this last one is like if the stars align and you always write correct code and that kind of stuff. That's the level that I'm looking for, okay? So that is the proposal kind of lab. You don't have to have that done when you come to speak to me. The last thing I want to note is the points right here. You may note that like, oh, all of these stuff, this was like 100, all our homeworks were 100 points and stuff. What's going on? Why is this only 5 points and 10 points? These pre-proposal and proposal are in a different category. They're in your final project category. So the final project category has 5 points for your pre-proposal, 10 points for your proposal, 20 points for your progress report, and then 100 points for your actual final. The entire point of this is that as long as you turn them in, right, and do them, there's no reason not to get 100 on those 3 first sections, whereas the majority of you get a 90 on the final, 90 out of 100 on the final project. This will mean that the vast majority of you will get, if I do the math correctly, that should be about 135 points. So you will get 125 out of 135, which, right, so your final grade for the vast majority of you, rather than being 90 out of 100, right, will be 135, 92 and a half, right? So it's to help balance that out. A lot of people also get more than that. I use 100s as a demarcation to easily communicate with the students who get the best projects. Now, the best projects, typically I aim to choose about 1 or 2 projects a section. I don't base it off of how many people necessarily there are. And generally speaking, if you make it really difficult for me, I like, oh, is it this student or this student? I'll generally go with both. Okay, so, because generally if you're in that situation, you're probably coding at a high enough level that I'm not going to have to worry about the final exam from you, okay? I'm really excited to see what ideas you have. On Thursday, we will go over more Monte Carlo stuff, okay? So, please, again, take a look at the announcements so you can see, oh, here is the practice exam. And just take a look at what's on the practice exam and what practice problems there are. Okay? All right, take care.